Today what I want to do is to look at a tool that I think is absolutely essential in making a feature film, and I'm talking about lenses. And I really want to take a look today here at these DZOFILM Vespid lenses. Can the DZOFILM Vespid line actually hold up and survive, and more importantly, not make me compromise my vision as a filmmaker and a storyteller through the glass, even though they come at an incredible price point? I think that's the question we all want to ask, and that's the question we all got to figure out. Oh, hey, and do me one favor, if you find this video useful in any way, shape, or form, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button down there. It is so hard to keep a YouTube channel going these days, and your subscriptions are the only thing that keeps this thing going. Oh, hey, and one note about this, I did reach out to DZOFILM, and they were kind enough to send me a full kit of Vespid Primes so I could really run them through the paces on this feature film. That being said, they're not paying me, they don't get to see anything that I'm posting here before I post it, and I do have to return all the lenses when I'm done, but it was really, really awesome that they did cooperate with me as an independent filmmaker and let me kind of run their lenses through a really brutal set that we had to do. All right, so today what we're gonna do is we're gonna really take a deep dive here into these DZOFILM Vespid lenses and see if they could be the right choice for you if you're a filmmaker and if you are on a tight budget. Now, spoiler alert, because I'm gonna be doing a long deep dive, yes, these things are freaking awesome. I cannot believe the value that I was able to get from the price point of these. If you need an affordable set of lenses that'll be tough enough and still not make you compromise your vision, these DZOFILM Vespids may be exactly what you're looking for. Now, say what happened to have it, I was recently hired to be the director of photography on a small independent narrative horror film. And so that put me in the position of creating a professional look on an extremely, extremely limited budget, which is something that I think a lot of you out there probably understand. Now, I spent a lot of time researching it, and really what I found in my research is I found kind of the perfect Goldilocks of lenses here in the DZOFILM Vespid Prime series. They had the right combination for me of character, build quality, speed, consistency, and lens choices that kind of led me to think this was the right lens to go into battle with. Now, the first factor I want to look at is going to be obviously the frame coverage. I needed full frame lenses, and the good thing about these DZO Vespid Primes is they cover more than a full frame sensor. They actually have an image circle of a 46.5 millimeters, which is slightly larger than full frame, which means they are rated as Vista Vision lenses. And that means that they work on even bigger sensors, things like the Red Raptor. Now, because I was going to be using an R5C at full frame, and I was going to be using the Red Komodo with a 0.71 adapter on it, I knew I would have no problem with that image sensor. This was going to give me exactly what I want to look at. So as soon as I discovered that the DZOFILM lenses would cover what I needed as far as my sensor, I needed to look at the next main factor, and that was going to simply be versatility in the lens kit. I didn't want to be in a situation where I would have to compromise what I wanted to say with my focal length because it didn't have a full range. And this is really where the DZOFILM line, especially the Vespid line, really came in. Now, I was able to get 9 primes from the DZOFILM Vespid line that ran from 16 millimeter all the way up to 125 millimeter. And this was just an absolutely fantastic range because it meant that I never felt compromised in any shot I was trying to achieve anywhere over several weeks in the film. I was always able to use these lenses, and I knew that I could get the character and quality that I want from these lenses. And I'm a big prime shooter. That's what I want to shoot. And so for me, the character and the speed of these lenses is something that I never felt compromised on. Now, lens choice is good, making sure you're covering your sensor is good, but those aren't really the factors that come into me in my final decisions for figuring out what lens is right for me in a film. And I gotta say, the next one is just gotta be something that is so hard to quantify, but it comes down to character. Now, this is a completely subjective and non-objective thing, but if you're gonna be shooting on a lens, you need to do some tests on it, and you need to decide if you like the character. Every lens has its own kind of character, and you want to make sure that it's right for the film. Now, one area that you're going to find out right away when you pick up these things is that these Vespids have just a ton of personality baked into them right out of the box, which is exactly what you want. And I found them to have really good contrast levels, and they played really nice with skin tones, and they had a really nice highlight rollout. Now, one note about these, I found the DZOFILMs tend to kind of give me a little cooler, crisper looks than you might find on the Canon Cine-E's or Cooks. They feel sharp without being over sharp or digital. They still give you that kind of nice film look with personality, and you know you can come out with a really sharp, crisp image. And if you really wanted to take it down even more step, you could easily put like a frost or pearl, something like that on front, and know that you're going to be able to get even a softer image. Now, one area that I did see a lot of character when I was doing this is going to be in the highlights and in direct lighting. And what I liked about this is when lights are hitting this, it almost looks like you have just a little bit of a mist filter even built on there. You get a really nice halation from the highlights, and I found the character worked really well, especially for the film I was doing on, because we have a character that's kind of losing her grip on reality. And once again, it just softened everything up, and I think it just made for a great effect that I was able to capture in camera. Now, I did love the Vespid characters, but there's one other area that's very, very critical for me, and that is going to be speed. Now, I was on a smaller production, we had lights, but we didn't have a ton of lighting, and I just needed fast lenses. And even if I was on a huge production, I'll be honest, I just like fast lenses. I'm the kind of guy that likes to shoot his apertures as wide as he can, because that just tends to be what I do a lot of the time. Now, the Vespid kits do run at a pretty fast cinema level. The entire line, except for the 16 and the 90 millimeter, goes all the way to 2.1 aperture, and the 16 and 90 max out at 2.8. So you're gonna get a fair amount of speed. Now, I will admit, when I started, I tend to like my cinema glass to get up to 1.5, but I did find, in all practicality, for the shoot I was on, that having this 2.1 aperture was more than enough for me to work with. I was able to get all of the speed I needed from the lenses. My sensor was never compromised, and I didn't have to compromise my lighting, which is the other really important thing. And with this 2.1 aperture throughout, honestly, I was shooting indoors, I was shooting at night. I never had to exceed an 800 ISO on my Red Komodo, and I was always able to protect all of my levels on the sensor, which gives me the range in post that I know the colorists are going to want to have, and we don't want to go into any kind of shoot having underexposed images. And having that T1 aperture was enough for me to get by and get the shoot that I want. Now, that leads me to the next factor that I do want to talk about whenever I am picking out cinema lenses for a movie. That's going to be something that I think a lot of you don't think about, and you should. And it's going to be consistency. Now, this is a hugely important factor for me in both the build quality and the visuals. And one thing is, if you have a prime kit, your lenses all tell a different story, and you don't want the visual character to change in your movie just because you're changing lenses. You really want there to be a consistency in color and quality between the lenses. And one thing I really liked about these Vespids that really surprised me, because I have used lower grade economic cinema lenses before, as I found these lenses to just be incredibly consistent across the range. Tonals, light follow off, all that stuff really give me a good range. So I knew whenever I changed the lenses to say what I wanted, I wasn't going to be calling attention to the fact that I was changing those lenses. It also really helped if I was doing a 2-camera set, that I knew each lens would be telling the same scene and there wouldn't be a very drastic jump between those 2 shots. So having that consistency is super important. Another thing that's really important when you're looking at consistency is going to be things like where the focus gears are on the camera. You want these things to be pretty much the same, because when you're doing pull follow focus wheels, you want to just basically take a camera off and drop everything back on. And one thing I really liked about this is all the lenses had a really nice consistent build quality to them. And I really love the fact that they all have a 77mm front element. That consistency is through all the lenses, and that just really helped me out, because honestly, I had a lot of filters, and knowing that I had such a universal, easy thing to do made it really nice. Now, another thing I don't think people really consider a lot when they are looking at more economy cinema lenses is going to be the build quality. Now, I've used some more affordable cinema lenses, and while they might have nice quality, they just really couldn't handle the stress of a multi-week environment, because let's be honest, film environments are really challenging. So in my experience, that you can get cheaper cinema glass, but it tends to break down over time, especially on the wear and tear on a normal set. And it makes perfect sense, right? I mean, you start attaching follow focus units to the cameras, putting stuff on gimbals and easy rigs. These are all really tough on the physical body of the lenses. So you want something that's going to hold up. And I found these Vespids to be surprisingly strong and reliable. I mean, these things are solid. When you hold them, they just feel like a glass brick in their hand. The first time I picked one of these up and put it in my hands, I was not expecting it to be as well constructed and solid as I was. I know I took this thing on a couple-week shoot, really put it through a lot, and they still look great, but I never once worried about this thing holding up Never had to worry about it breaking down. This thing just worked and it was ready to go all the way through. And this is really important because if you're looking at getting cinema glass like this, even affordable cinema glass, let's be honest guys, this is a significant investment and you want something that's going to last you for a long, long time. And one thing is that these Vespid Primes feel like an investment legacy type thing. This thing is going to last you through several camera systems and over several years just because they have a really good build quality to hold them all together. I also got to say one other thing. I did love the size of the lenses themselves. As you can see, these are cinema lenses, but they're not that big. It's really not much bigger than any of my Canon photo lenses that I use on my normal smaller jobs. And what's nice about this made these really, really convenient and easy for saying doing easy rig, shoulder mount, and gimbal work. I just found these lenses were great. I didn't have to make like a huge concession to do it. And to have a lens that gives you that much speed at 2.1 and not make you forced to compromise on side and still feel really solid. And if I'm going to talk build, there's one other component I found super useful to these Vespid lenses, especially if you want to look at getting these as an investment. And that is the fact that they have made it super easy to switch out between EF and PL mounts on these lenses. I got these lens kits from DZOFILM and they were all actually PLs, and I knew because I was going to be shooting on an R5C and the Red Komodo with my 0.71x converter, I needed to convert them all to EF. It was incredibly easy to do that. I don't have to have a completely separate things, but let's say I have another film down the road where I'm using another camera that is a PL mount, or I want to use a PL mount for whatever reason, I can easily convert these back and forth. And I love having that freedom because this gives me flexibility for these lenses to grow with me, and I know that I can use them for several years because whatever camera I have, I can easily switch those out, and it's so easy. It's a couple screws, put them all in, and you're good to go. So I found that to be something that I hadn't thought was something that I was looking for in a lens, but it is definitely now something I will not want to have in any cinema lens I got because it just protects my investment. And the last major thing that I want to focus on is, hey, let's talk about it. Focus breathing, right? Now, focus breathing is really important because you're going to be in a situation that you don't want a focus pull to kind of take you out of the narrative and call attention to the camera itself. And I did find that one nice thing about these Vespid lenses is the focus breathing was pretty minimal and not distracting. And that is one thing I think you see on a lot of the more economical cinema lenses as they tend to make some compromises on focus breathing. And I really found the Vespids to hold up really, really well on focus breathing. Now, whenever I do any kind of review of any kind of product, I always like to talk about what I see kind of rooms for improvement. Because let's be honest, these are big investments and you should go in there kind of knowing what the strengths and weaknesses are of any system so you can make a decision if this is the right investment for you and your kit. Now, I really was honestly very, very impressed with this DZOFILM Vespid line. Their quality was great. I love the visual kind of character of it, but there were some things that you should be aware of if you're thinking about it. The first one is if you are someone out there that just really, really needs a fast lens kit, like that super fast 1.5 aperture is very, very critical to you, then you need to be aware that the Vespid Prime line tops out at a 2.1 aperture, except for the 16 and the 90, which go to 2.8. So that is just something you need to be aware of. Now, that being said, after having shot an entire feature film over several weeks with the aperture going to 2.1, and as someone that personally loves fast primes himself, I actually didn't find myself feeling limited by that 2.1 aperture, which is actually really, really nice to see that in a practical standpoint. But it is something you need to be aware of if you're a person that just loves fast lenses. Now, that being said, DZOFILM has just come out with their R-less line of primes that do go that fast. So if it is something that you feel that this kind of price point and this quality is kind of attractive to you, but you want those fast lenses, I would recommend checking out the DZOFILM R-less lines because those do kind of capture all those boxes, which kind of makes it very, very intriguing to think about. The other area that I would say is a room for improvement is just be aware that these lenses do not communicate metadata information to the camera. So for instance, if you're on a Red Komodo or R5C or something like that, and you want to see the aperture you're at, and you want to see the film lens that you have, you're not going to have that. So it's very, very important to know if you're doing a film set, make sure you're taking detailed notes on a set of what lens you're using, because you can't go back and kind of pull that metadata out from the camera later. At least I didn't on my Red Komodo or on my R5C, so I do think that is something you should be aware of. So all in all, guys, these Vespid Primes are an incredibly solid solid purchase if you are finding yourself having to shoot a feature film and need something that can help you get the job done without compromising and you have to work on a tight budget. I was blown away with the quality I got from them and just how sturdy they were and all the factors that come in. And the good news is these things come in at $6,000 for a 7-lens kit, and one Canon Cine E lens costs $4,000. So this is something that I think if you're looking at investing in an actual kit that can help you up your game, these things cover all the boxes you need of incredible price, great quality, and consistency that is going to live with you for a long, long time. Anyway, guys, I'd love to hear what you have to say about this. Go ahead and leave me notes and comments down below. Yeah, go out there, keep on shooting, and yeah, I'll talk to you soon.